It's a universally acknowledged truth in the world of webtoons that if you die a pathetic, sudden death in the real world, you're bound to wake up in a fictional one. Usually, you're the heroic protagonist destined for glory. But my luck? Absolutely atrocious. One minute, I was a normal guy getting crushed by a runaway truck on my way home from work, and the next, my eyes snapped open. I wasn't in a hospital. I was staring up at a massive, gold-leaf ceiling draped in silk sheets, surrounded by a dozen panicked servants calling me, "Young Master Ren." It didn't take me more than 5 minutes to realize exactly where I was. The tailored, multi-million-dollar suits in the walk-in closet, the staggering wealth, the cold, sharp reflection of a strikingly beautiful but arrogant face in the mirror. I had been reborn inside the dark romance webtoon I read right before dying. But I wasn't the main character. I was Rin Vance, the petty, short-sighted villain destined to be utterly ruined, tortured, and thrown away by the story's actual protagonist, the terrifyingly powerful mafia heir, Julian Vance. In the original plot, Rin spends every waking moment trying to sabotage Julian's operations out of pure jealousy, only for Julian to ruthlessly dismantle the Vance family piece by piece. By the end of the story, Ren loses everything and meets a brutal end. Ren, staring at his hands in the mirror, heart pounding, cold sweat dropping. Okay, think. Think clearly. I know exactly how this story ends for Ren Vance. If I play the villain, I die. If I try to fight Julian, I die faster. The original Ren was obsessed with power, status, and proving himself. But me? I just want to live a quiet, peaceful life where nobody shoots at me. The solution is actually simple. I just need to completely avoid the main plot. I will be cold, I will be distant, and I will stay as far away from Julian as humanly possible. If he never notices me, he will never have a reason to destroy me. With a new lease on life, I completely flipped Ren's daily routine. I stopped showing up to the high society underground auctions. I ignored the family business rivalries, handing over the paperwork to the elders. I basically turned myself into a wealthy ghost, spending my days drinking tea in the garden and reading books. But fate, as it turns out, is a massive jerk that hates being ignored. It happened during a rainy evening at an exclusive, underground business gala, an elite networking event for the city's most dangerous figures. It was an event I was strictly forced to attend by my family elders to keep up appearances. To minimize the risk, I spent the entire night hiding in the darkest, most isolated corner of the VIP balcony. I stood there sipping champagne, watching the rain beat against the glass, waiting for the clock to strike midnight so I could escape back to my safe bed. Then, the heavy glass doors of the grand ballroom below opened. The loud chatter in the ballroom suddenly died out into a suffocating, tense silence. I leaned slightly over the balcony railing, and there he was. Julian. He walked into the room like he owned the air everyone else was breathing. Clad in a sharp, pitch-black tailored suit, with eyes like polished obsidian and an aura so heavy it felt like the atmospheric pressure in the room dropped instantly. In the original novel, this was the exact moment where the villain Rin was supposed to walk downstairs, intentionally spill red wine on Julian's suit to humiliate him, and spark their lifelong, deadly rivalry. Ren, gulping hard, backing away into the shadows of the balcony. Nope, absolutely not. Not today, Satan. I am leaving through the back right now. I turned on my heel, keeping my head down, and slipped out through the private service exit of the balcony. I walked down a dimly lit, empty hallway heading straight toward the private elevators. My heart was thumping against my ribs, but I felt a surge of relief. I thought I was home free. I thought I had successfully cheated the plot. But as I rounded the final corner near the elevators, the world seemed to slow down. I bumped straight into a solid, unyielding chest. The scent of expensive cologne, rain, and faint tobacco filled my senses. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. I looked up. It was Julian. He was standing there completely alone in the dim hallway, a silver lighter flicking open and closed in his hand with a rhythmic, mesmerizing click. According to the plot, he should have looked at me with pure disgust, but instead, his dark eyes narrowed, tracing the lines of my face with a strange, calculating curiosity. Julian. Voice deep, dangerously smooth, stepping into my space. Rin Vance. I've noticed you've been skipping our usual family council meetings. In fact, You've been actively hiding from me for a month. Care to tell me what game you're playing? My breath hitched completely. My mind was racing at 1,000 miles an hour, cycling through every line of dialogue from the original Webtoon. If I acted arrogant like the old run, he'd see right through me and crush me. If I showed fear, he would exploit it. I needed to be completely indifferent. I needed to show him I wanted absolutely nothing to do with him, his empire, or his world. Ren. Stepping backward to create space, forcing my voice to be completely flat, cold, and emotionless. There is no game, Lord Julian. I simply realized over the past month that our family's business overlaps far too much, causing unnecessary friction. I have no interest in your territory, your assets, or you. From now on, consider the Vance family completely out of your way. I am stepping down from the council. Excuse me. I bowed my head slightly, a polite, professional, but incredibly distant gesture, and walked right past him, brushing shoulders slightly, without waiting for him to reply. I didn't look back. I kept my eyes fixed on the elevator doors. If I had turned around, I would have seen Julian freeze in place. The silver lighter stopped mid-flick, the flame dying out. He wasn't used to being dismissed. He was used to Rin snapping at him, plotting behind his back, or desperately trying to match his authority. This cold, total indifference was entirely alien. It didn't fit the profile his intelligence team had gathered. And to a man like Julian, anything unpredictable was a puzzle that needed to be solved. Over the next 2 weeks, I strictly maintained my self-imposed isolation. I stayed inside my private penthouse, managing small, non-threatening, legal investments online, drinking coffee, and enjoying the quiet life I had fought for. But while I was trying to erase myself from the script, Julian was doing the exact opposite. He was rewriting it. One rainy afternoon, my assistant rushed into my study without knocking. He was pale, trembling violently, and holding a thick, black, wax-sealed envelope with the Vance Main family crest, Julian's personal seal. Assistant. Why, young Master Ren? This just arrived via a secure courier from Lord Julian's private estate. It's a direct, personal invitation to a private dinner tonight. Just you and him. His armored vehicles are already waiting downstairs in the courtyard to escort you. They said refusal isn't an option. Ren, sighing deeply, throwing my pen onto the desk, rubbing my temples. Are you kidding me? What part of I want nothing to do with you did his brilliant mafia brain not understand? Knowing that refusing a direct order from the city's most ruthless tyrant would likely result in my penthouse being turned into a crater, I had no choice but to comply. An hour later, I was sitting across from Julian at a massive, dimly lit mahogany dining table inside his heavily guarded private estate. The atmosphere was thick, suffocating, and dripping with tension. The table was filled with luxury dishes, but I kept my gaze fixed firmly on my plate, eating silently, cutting my food with precise movements, completely refusing to make eye contact. I was deliberately trying to be the most boring, uninteresting dinner partner in human history, so he would get bored and send me away. Julian, setting down his wine glass with a sharp, echoing clink against the mahogany. You haven't looked at me once since you sat down tonight, Ren. Am I really that hideous to look at? Ren, voice calm, maintaining a perfect monotone rhythm, not looking up. The food is excellent, Lord Julian. I see no reason to distract myself with idle conversation. Julian, leaning forward, his massive shadow casting over the entire table, his eyes locked onto me like a predator. A month ago, you were trying to bribe my shipping dock managers. Now, you won't even look me in the eye. You look at me like I'm a ghost. Or worse, like I'm an obstacle you're trying to navigate around. What changed, Ren? People don't just wake up one day and become a completely different person. Ren, slowly lifting my head, letting my eyes meet his with total detachment, completely devoid of fear or malice. I told you at the gala, Julian. I am playing nothing. I woke up one day and realized that fighting for power, territory, and blood is entirely meaningless. You want the city? Take it. You want the Vance Empire's shares? Provide the paperwork, and I will sign them over tomorrow. I don't care about the throne anymore. I just want peace. So please, let's just ignore each other's existence from now on. I stood up, wiping my hands gracefully with a linen napkin, and bowed politely to the man who was supposed to be my executioner. Ren, thank you for the hospitality and the dinner. As I turned my back to leave the dining hall, Julian's voice echoed through the massive, high-ceilinged room. It wasn't angry or furious. It was amused. Deeply, dangerously amused, laced with an underlying current of dark fascination. Julian, you think you can just walk out of my life because you suddenly lost interest, Ren? The world doesn't work that way. Especially not my world. The more you run, the more I want to know what you're hiding. A few days after that tense dinner at Julian's estate, I thought he would finally realize how incredibly boring I was and leave me alone. I was completely wrong. My attempt at acting like a detached ghost only seemed to make him look closer. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting on my penthouse balcony, completely relaxed in a lounge chair, reading a book on financial history while sipping iced tea. The sky was perfectly clear, and for a split second, I actually forgot I was trapped inside a dangerous mafia webtoon. Suddenly, the heavy glass doors leading to my balcony slid open with a sharp click. I didn't even hear my penthouse security alarm go off. I scrambled up from my chair, dropping my book onto the glass table, my heart instantly leaping into my throat. Standing in the doorway was Julian. He wasn't wearing his usual formal suit jacket. He just wore a crisp, white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms, exposing the dark, intricate tattoos wrapping around his skin. Two of his massive, unsmiling bodyguards stood out in my living room, blocking the exit. Julian walked out onto the balcony as if he owned the property, his dark eyes instantly locking onto me. Ren, voice tight, trying desperately to mask the sudden panic shaking my frame. Lord Julian, I don't recall approving an appointment for you today. And last time I checked, breaking and entering is still illegal, even for someone of your status. Julian, walking slowly to the edge of the balcony, leaning his hands on the railing, looking out at the city. Your security team is completely incompetent, Ren. I bypassed your biometric locks in less than 3 minutes. If I were one of your family's actual enemies, you would already be at the bottom of the river. Ren, stepping back, keeping my expression cold and rigid. The Vance family has no enemies anymore because I stepped down. I told you, I am out of the game. If you came here to threaten me into surrendering more territory, you're wasting your time. Just send your lawyers. I'll sign whatever you want. Julian slowly turned his head to look at me. His expression was completely unreadable, a mask of cold obsidian. He stepped away from the railing, closing the distance between us until he was standing right over my chair. The sheer physical presence of the man was suffocating. Julian, picking up the book I dropped, flipping through the pages casually. No plans, no hidden ledgers, no weapons, just a book on history and a glass of tea. You really are living like a retired old man, aren't you? Ren, it's exactly what I want. Peace. Julian, tossing the book back onto the table, his eyes narrowing to sharp slits. A man with your intellect and your family pedigree doesn't just give up the throne for peace. Run. You're plotting something. Or you're hiding something immense from me. I haven't decided which one it is yet. Ren, looking directly into his eyes, forcing my voice to be dead serious. I am hiding nothing. I just realized that the path we were on only leads to a brutal, pathetic death. I chose to live. Why does that bother you so much? Julian, leaning down, his voice dropping into a dangerous, low growl. Because you're the first person in my entire life who looked at me like I wasn't worth your time. And I absolutely loathe being dismissed. Julian left my penthouse after that unannounced inspection, but his words lingered in the air like a heavy, toxic fog. He was trying to catch me in a lie. He expected the old, venomous Ren to slip up and reveal a secret plot. To show him that I truly had no dark ambitions, I decided to do something completely public and completely harmless. I attended a high-end charity art gallery auction in the center of the city. The event was packed with civilian elites, reporters, and wealthy politicians, a place where mafia violence was strictly impossible due to the heavy media presence. I walked through the gallery silently, keeping my hands in my pockets, pretending to appreciate the abstract paintings on the walls. I was actively trying to look like a harmless, wealthy socialite who had completely lost his edge. But as I approached the centerpiece of the exhibition, a massive canvas painted entirely in shades of midnight blue and black, a shadow fell over me. I didn't even need to look to know who it was. The sudden, freezing shift in the atmosphere gave him away instantly. Julian stepped up right beside me, his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the same dark painting. Julian. Voice smooth, cutting through the low chatter of the gallery crowd. It looks like a storm over an ocean. Violent. Unpredictable. It reminds me of the look in your eyes whenever I get too close to you. Ren. Ren. Sighing softly, refusing to look over at him. Do you follow me everywhere now, Julian? Don't you have a multi-billion-dollar criminal empire to run? Julian. A faint, dark chuckle escaping his lips. My empire runs perfectly fine without my constant supervision. But you? You require my personal attention. I find myself checking my phone waiting for reports on your daily schedule. It's an incredibly bad habit I'm developing. Ren. Turning my head to face him, my voice flat and completely unimpressed. Then break the habit. I am an incredibly boring person to track. Today I bought groceries, walked in the park, and now I'm looking at art I don't understand. Are you thoroughly entertained yet? Julian. Finally turning his gaze to look down at me, his eyes burning with that strange, unhinged intensity. I am fascinated, Ren. The old you would have tried to outbid me on every painting in this room just to prove a point. The old you would be sweating, trying to look strong. But you don't care at all, do you? You look at all this wealth and power like it's nothing but dust. Ren. Because it is dust, Julian. In the end, none of it saves you. My words seemed to strike a chord deep inside him. Julian's posture stiffened slightly. For a brief second, the predatory mask dropped, revealing a deep, dark curiosity underneath. He opened his mouth to say something, but a group of wealthy politicians suddenly approached us, forcing him to step back into his role as the terrifying mafia heir. I used the distraction to slip away into the crowd, exiting through the front doors into the cool night air. But as I got into my car, my hands were shaking. I wasn't successfully avoiding the plot. I was driving the main lead absolutely insane. 2 weeks after the charity gallery event, I realized that avoiding Julian was mathematically impossible. No matter where I went, his presence loomed over my life. So, I decided to do something completely ordinary, something the original, high-flying villain Ren would never do. I went to a crowded, low-end bookstore in a quiet corner of the city. I was standing in a narrow aisle, surrounded by the smell of old paper, looking for a simple fiction novel. For the first time in months, I felt like a normal person. Then, the bell above the shop door chimed. The casual chatter of the other customers suddenly died out, replaced by a tense, suffocating silence. I looked up from the book in my hands. Walking down the cramped aisle, entirely out of place in his tailored, multi-thousand-dollar black suit, was Julian. He had to look down just to avoid hitting his head on the low-hanging light fixtures. Ren, closing the book with a heavy sigh, looking up at him with sheer exhaustion. You have got to be kidding me. A bookstore, Julian? How did your men even track me here? I didn't even bring my phone. Julian, running a finger along the spine of a dusty book on the shelf, his eyes fixed entirely on me. You underestimate my resources, Ren. And you underestimate my curiosity. When my security team told me you entered a district that your family hasn't touched in a decade, I thought you were meeting a secret informant. Imagine my surprise when I find you holding a cheap paperback. Ren, stepping closer, keeping my voice down so the terrified shopkeeper doesn't hear us. Because I am just reading. I am trying to live a quiet, ordinary life. Why can't you just accept that the old Ren is gone? Why do you keep chasing a ghost? Julian, stepping forward, completely trapping me between his massive frame and the wooden bookshelf. Because the old Ren was entirely predictable. He wanted power, he wanted blood, and he was easy to destroy. But you? You look at me with absolute indifference, yet your heart rate spikes every time I get close. You aren't a ghost, Ren. You're a puzzle, and I intend to solve you. Ren, pressing my back against the shelf, looking straight into his intense eyes. And what happens when you realize there is no puzzle? What happens when you realize I'm just a tired man who wants nothing to do with your world? Julian, leaning down, his breath brushing against my ear, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. Then I will simply drag you back into my world anyway. Because a quiet life doesn't suit you, Ren. You belong in the dark. With me. My strategic plan of playing a cold, boring background character had officially backfired in the most catastrophic way possible. Instead of leaving me alone to rot in my peaceful penthouse, Julian became entirely, obsessively fixated on my every move. Everywhere I went, his shadow followed. If I frequented a quiet, hidden cafe on the edge of the city, the barista would nervously inform me that my tab had already been permanently covered by a gentleman named Julian. If I ordered a rare, antique historical book online, it would arrive at my doorstep the very next morning, wrapped in silk, accompanied by a handwritten note in sharp, elegant cursive. My private penthouse, which used to be my ultimate sanctuary, now felt like a gilded cage surrounded by his unseen, omnipresent eyes. I was losing my mind. The original plot of the webtoon was completely collapsing under the weight of his attention, and Julian's obsession was growing heavier by the day. One stormy night, the pressure became too much to bear. I needed to escape the city limits. I drove out alone to a secluded, cliffside overlook, a sharp drop facing the roaring ocean below. It was a place where the original Rin used to go to scream out his frustrations. I stood out in the pouring rain, letting the freezing water drench my clothes, my hair plastered to my forehead, trying to figure out a way out of this narrative prison. Suddenly, the blinding high beams of a heavy black SUV cut through the darkness behind me, illuminating the sheets of rain. The heavy engine cut out, and the door slammed shut with a thud. Through the downpour, a large black umbrella opened. Julian walked toward me, his steps slow, deliberate, and entirely unbothered by the raging storm. He didn't look angry, he looked consumed. He stopped right beside me, holding the umbrella high over my head, shielding my body from the rain while letting his own shoulders get completely soaked. Ren, voice shaking violently from the freezing cold and sheer frustration, turning to face him. Why are you doing this to me, Julian? Why won't you just leave me alone? I gave you everything you wanted. I stepped down from the council. I surrendered the shipping routes. I gave you the territory without a fight. Julian, tossing the umbrella entirely into the wind, letting it blow away over the cliffside, stepping dangerously close into my personal space until our chests almost touched. Do you honestly think I care about the territory, Ren? Do you think I care about your family's petty, pathetic wealth? Ren, confused, breathing heavily, backing up until my spine hit the icy hood of my car. Then what do you want from me? Why won't you let me just exist? Julian, suddenly reaching out and grabbing my wrist, his grip burning hot against my freezing skin, his dark eyes blazing with an unhinged intensity. I want to know who the hell you are. The old Rin Vance was an annoying, predictable insect I could have crushed with my eyes closed. But you look at me like you know secrets I haven't even told myself. You walk away from me like I'm a plague, yet you're the only person in this entire damn city who doesn't look at me with fear, cowardice, or greed. You look at me like I'm just a man, and it's driving me absolutely insane. I can't sleep, I can't think, because every time I close my eyes, I see your cold, indifferent face looking back at me. Ren, heart hammering violently against my ribs, panic and something else blooming in my chest. Julian, you're making a massive mistake. I'm not who you think I am. If you stay close to me, it will ruin the story. It ruins everything. You're supposed to hate me. Julian, leaning down, his face mere inches from mine, his warm breath cutting through the freezing rain, his grip tightening but never hurting. Then let the story burn to the ground. Because I'm not letting you go. Not anymore. If you want peace, you're going to have it with me. Before my brain could process the sheer weight of his words, Julian's lips slammed onto mine. It wasn't a cruel, violent act of dominance. It was desperate, passionate, and fiercely possessive, as if he were trying to anchor me to this world so I couldn't vanish. The torrential rain poured fiercely around us, washing away the remnants of the old timeline, leaving only the intense heat of his embrace and the realization that the plot was completely, beautifully broken beyond repair. 6 long, quiet months have passed since that fateful, stormy night on the jagged cliffside overlook. The dangerous, bloody mafia wars, the underhanded corporate betrayals, the tragic, scripted fate of the original villain, all of it has been completely and utterly erased. It was rewritten by a fierce, protective love that was never supposed to exist in the margins of this book. I managed to survive the plot, not by weaponizing myself or fighting the narrative head-on, but by completely and accidentally capturing the heart of the most dangerous man in it. Now, we live together far away from the dark, suffocating chaos of the criminal underworld. We share a stunning, ultra-luxurious penthouse located on the top floor of the tallest skyscraper in the city, completely overlooking the glowing, endless skyline below. It's right at twilight. The entire expansive living room is completely washed in a warm, mesmerizing palette of deep golds, soft pinks, and rich purples. The massive floor-to-ceiling glass windows show the miniature world below, bustling with life, traffic, and noise. But up here, miles above the pavement, it's completely silent, serene, peaceful. I'm standing right by the glass, holding a warm, steaming cup of coffee in my hands, silently looking out at the fading light. Even after half a year, I still find myself sometimes unable to believe that this is actually my real life. In my past life, I died in a chaotic instant. In this life, I was scripted to be a dead villain. Instead, I am entirely safe. I am protected. I am deeply and utterly loved. A pair of strong, intimately familiar arms wrap firmly around my waist from behind. Julian pulls my back flush against his broad chest, burying his face directly into the warm crook of my neck, inhaling deeply as if breathing me in. The sharp, terrifying, cold-blooded mafia boss from the Webtoon panels is completely nowhere to be found in this space. Here, in the quiet of our home, he is just mine. Julian. Voice low, deep, a soft, rare smile evident in his tone, his grip tightening comfortably. You're overthinking things again, sweetheart. I can practically hear your brilliant mind racing from all the way across the kitchen. Ren. Leaning my head back against his sturdy shoulder, smiling softly into the reflection of the glass. I wasn't overthinking, I promise. I was just thinking about how much everything has completely changed. 6 months ago, I was absolutely terrified of you. I genuinely thought you were going to corner me and destroy me. Julian. Gently turning my body around within his embrace so I'm facing him directly, his large hands resting securely on my waist, his eyes dark and glowing. Destroy you? Ren, I was losing my mind trying to figure out how to make you just look at me for more than a single second. You were so staggeringly cold, so unreachable. Every single time I tried to step into your space, you looked like an angel who wanted to vanish into thin air just to escape my sight. Ren, laughing softly, the sound light and free, wrapping my arms gently around his neck. Well, can you blame me? My ultimate survival plan was to stay as far away from the powerful male lead as humanly possible. It was an exceptionally good plan on paper. Julian, his expression softening with an endless, deep affection, his thumb moving up to gently cradle my cheek. Too bad for you, then. Because from the exact moment you walked right past me at that gala, my entire world completely stopped spinning around the family business, the power, the endless revenge. It started spinning entirely around you. You are my fate now, Ren. I don't care about any other story. Ren, looking deeply into his obsidian eyes, my heart full and calm. I know, Julian, and I'm not running away anymore. I'm staying right here. Narrator. Julian leans down slowly, his dark eyes locking onto mine for a brief fraction of a second before he completely closes the remaining distance between us. The final kiss is slow, deeply passionate, and filled with a quiet, holy reverence. It is a solid promise of forever, a profound vow spoken without a single word in the warm, golden quiet of our penthouse. The story didn't go the way it was written by the author. The villain didn't die in the dark, and the hero didn't find his original, scripted ending. Instead, we tore up the pages and created something entirely ours, a perfect, flawless, unshakable happy ending that lasts for the rest of our days. Fade out completely on the passionate kiss as the sunset dips below the horizon.